everyone. How are you all doing today? I trust you guys are doing well. It's been a while since I've done a live stream. Wanted to jump on, do a Q&A, take some questions, you know, hang out with y'all for an hour or so. So if you have any questions as it relates to everything and anything gospel piano, you can post it in the chat. A couple of housekeeping rules. When you post your question, start it with the word question. That way, when I'm looking at the chat, I can identify the questions versus the regular comments. All right. Second housekeeping, try to make your question as clear and concise as possible, right? So don't write a paragraph. I'm not going to sit here and read a paragraph, but also don't make your question vague, right? Try to see if you can make it very specific to a specific situation based on a specific application, because I can only work with that. If it's too vague, then I don't know what you're really asking. I can't answer it. All right. Outside of that, just like, comments, you know, share the live. Little things like that helps to boost the viewership. All right. So I'm going to start taking some questions from the chat. Let me turn down this piano a little bit. Seems a little loud in my ear. Okay. All right, a question from Pradvinti says, what should I practice after learning all majors and minor scales and triads? So it depends on your sort of initial goal. There are a lot of things you can practice, but not all things are important. So let's sort of break this down a little bit. Fundamentals. If you're a beginner or early intermediate, your goal really should be spent on fundamental activities. So for fundamentals, you want to make sure that you're comfortable with all your scales and all 12 keys. You want to be able to play progressions and chords in all 12 keys. You need to be able to play your majors and minor scales in all 12 keys, preferably 4 octaves, hands together. So those are what I call fundamentals. Arpeggios, blocked chords, broken chords. And when I talk about blocked chords and broken chords, I'm talking about stuff like this. So this is considered blocked chords, broken chords, arpeggios. You might say, Warren, why is it important to learn those things? Because we actually use them in songs. So when you see me playing, and then you see me do, then when you see me do, that's literally those exercises now being used in a musical context. So if you wait until you're trying to do a specific run or a specific line to start practicing those exercises, at that point it's too late. It's going to take you too long to learn. So you do these exercises so you're prepared. So when the time comes for you to start executing and trying these things, your fingers already know what to do. So after you learn your scales, the goal is to make sure you have those technique activities laying down. Now, as it relates to scales, there are 4 scales that I always recommend everybody learn, right? Especially if you're interested in gospel piano or anything pop and in funk, blues, and all of that. You start with the majors, then the minors, then the blues scale, then the pentatonic scale. In most cases, you won't need any scales beyond that. So when you see me doing, that's pentatonic. That's pentatonic. Then That's blues. That's blues. So that's why it's important to know major, minor, blues, and pentatonic. So those are really the fundamentals that you want to make sure you knock out. Once you have those things down pat, then you realize everything else sort of comes a little bit easier, or you're able to work on those things with more confidence. Next question. Hit the Nato. Y'all have some strange username. He says, hey mates, can you show me the blues scale? There's so many videos I have in the blues scale, but it's best to memorize the formula for the blues scale. 1, flat 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, flat 7, back to the 1. That's the formula for the blues scale. So you go on any note and you apply that and you get the blues scale. You start on A, 1, flat 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, flat 7, 1. And we're talking about altering the major scale to get those degrees. So when I say 1, flat 3, I'm talking about in the context of the major scale. So E flat major. So when I say 1, flat 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, flat 7. So once you have that formula memorized, then it's easy to craft the blues scale. I also have a PDF, a free PDF floating around where I show you the fingerings and the notes for all 12 blues scales, multiple octave for both hands. So that's something you can download and start working on right away. Question, can you please advise me on some tips on the role of a second keyboard during praise and during praise time with fast rhythms? So when you have fast rhythms, praise and worship, you know, if you're doing this is a day. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I'm just sort of doing some random rhythm. But if you're just saying you're doing something like that, generally the keyboard man, or if you have a guitarist that plays chord, they're going to be doing a lot of rhythmic activity. So main keyboard guy, guitar man, they're going to be doing a lot of the rhythmic stuff. You're on second keyboard, your job is really to create lines. So depending on your church, you might have a synth line. You may pull out a horn patch, because your goal is to create, think of the role of a horn player in a band. This is a day that the Lord has made. Bitty, 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 bitty. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Ba-da-da-da-da. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. So anywhere the licks and the lines would be coming, that's where second piano player shines. And like I said, you want a dominant sound. So you can go synth. I'm not a big fan of synth, to be honest, especially in church. I prefer something more traditional like horns. So if you got a good horn patch, you peel that out and you're just functioning like a horn player in a band. You also think of how lead guitarist functions in a band. Those guys that do predominant just licks with guitars, you know, you're filling in the gaps. Also because you're a keyboard player that also can play chords, you're helping to create harmonic depth. So sometimes you can double up the keyboard player. So in that song again, this is a day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is how do you know those little lines? Right? Or this is the what I mean? So I'm hearing it in my head, all the places where you could do those jabs. I'm just not able to do both at the same time. But your job really as a second keyboard player in those up-tempo songs is to fill those gaps with little licks. Think of like it's almost like call and response. This is a day that the Lord has. Will rejoice and be glad in. Right? A lot of opportunity. So that's where you shine. Another question, I want to ask you how I can know the next chord when playing in an advanced way. For example, Grace Gospel Hymn, I'm not sure what that is. I like what I can be adding to make it sound pro. I think I know what you're asking. But here's the thing. Playing beginner and playing advanced, there is really not much difference to it. Let me explain. The advanced stuff that you see those guys doing, it's still based and built on the fundamentals of the beginner's version of the song, right? All they're doing at that level is adding more chords and licks and runs to what's already there. So when you ask, how do you know what chord comes next? You shouldn't have to ask that. If you know the beginner's version, that's what comes next. Now, if you're talking about how do you know what passing chord to use and what licks to use and when to use those things, those aren't something we just conjure out of thin air, right? It's not a magic trick. These are things we know in advance. Like, again, in that song I was doing, This Is the Day. Well, this is a day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. Right? You see all those different chord choices I'm doing? I knew in advance that all of that stuff could work, so I just do them. So in other words, what I'm saying, the advanced chords, licks, and lines that you want to use is something you have to learn at home before you're able to just do it in songs, right? And you have to learn them systematically and step by step, and you got to learn them in the context of a song, right? It's just like language. If you don't speak French, you can't just roll up on someone and understand French. No, you would have to be practicing French for weeks and months, if not years, so that when you arrive at a place where French is being spoken, you already have the vocabulary to be able to speak French. Now, it's the same thing in music. If you don't already know all the different types of passing chord concepts, if you don't know how to use different types of chords and voicings, then we can't just pull them out in songs. So the big question is, are you putting in the work to learn these things individually? For those of you all who've been watching me for a while, you know I have videos that tackle each of these subjects already. So just start working on my advanced videos and learn the concepts, and then slowly start applying them. Eventually you'll get to the point where you get fluent with it, where you can just pull it out in any song. But you can't just go from not knowing it to doing it in every song. You know, it's got to be a process. Welcome, y'all. If you're just coming in, this is our live Q&A. I haven't done one in a while. So drop your question in the chat. I'm going to try to see if I can, how many questions I can get through today. The goal, I'm going to try to stay on for about an hour and a half. We'll see how it goes. To make your questions as short and concise as possible, make them clear, right? The goal is, if you want your question answer, you want to make sure I understand the question so I can provide the answer that is suitable for you. So if I have to guess what you're meaning, I may have to skip the question, right? So make your question clear and concise. Richard says, will you be doing more solo piano tutorials? I'm not quite sure what you mean by solo piano tutorials. You're talking about when I'm playing the chords and the melody? Because all my tutorials, it's just me alone playing. So if you're talking about with me, chords and melody, it depends. Are you talking also about YouTube or in my paid program? Because I tend to do a lot more of that stuff in the paid program. And plug right there for those of you who don't know, you definitely want to visit pianolessonwithwarren.com. And right here, wait, See, right here, pianolessonwithwarren.com. That's my private membership program where I go above and beyond, way beyond the scope of the stuff that's offered on YouTube. So, but it depends, Richard. It depends on the type of tutorials. If it's a song breakdown, most likely the advanced version is going to be a solo piano version. The intermediate and beginner may be solo piano as well, but I tend to use those as backing track because beginners struggle to play solo piano chords and melodies. So that's why I try not to do too many of those at the beginner's level. We got another question. What should I practice after learning? Oop, I did get that one already, so I think we can move on from that. Steven says, how can I know and understand chords with the scale? You got to study it, Steven. Study the chord and scale relationship, right? If you guys haven't gone through all my YouTube videos yet, you're missing out. I have about 1,000 videos right here on YouTube. Go through all of them. It's probably going to take you a couple of years to get through all of them, but I guarantee you, if you do, there's so much you can still learn from just being on YouTube. So when you say, how can I learn the chords within the scale, just check out my tutorials, brother. They're already there. Because there isn't any other way to learn it without someone teaching it to you. But it's a very important skill to understand chord-scale relationship, because you're going to need to have that skill under your belt before you can begin to learn improvisation. Another question, how can you show us how to lift keys from hymns? How to shift keys from hymns. So I'm not quite sure I understand the terminology when you say shift keys. What does that mean? You'll need to clarify that. Another question, what's the second key? Yeah, answer that question already. And just so you know, guys, like I said, I'm going to try to go through as many questions as possible. So you don't need to re-ask your question. If you ask it once, most likely I'm going to see it. You don't need to ask it again, because I'm seeing some duplicate questions here that I answered above. Welcome, welcome, welcome for those who are just coming in. Joshua says, is drop 2 a passing chord, or how can I categorize it? Drop 2 is a way of voicing chords. That's what it is. Drop 2 simply means you take the second highest note in the chord and play it in the left hand. So if you take a C major chord, you take the second highest note within the chord, which is the E, you play it here, that's a drop 2 voicing. So that's what it is. It's just a way of voicing the chord, makes it sound cool. Now, if I'm playing a C major 7, and I take the second highest note in the chord, so that would be the G, and I play it in the left hand, still a C major 7, now it's a drop 2 voicing, right? And if I'm being honest, drop 2 is not something I used a lot, to be honest. There are some spots that I use it, but I've seen other guys on YouTube who are like masters at the drop 2. It was one of those things I never really got into. It's a cool technique, cool concept, and you can get some really cool sounds from it. You guys want to see drop 2 in action? Corey Taylor, right here on YouTube, he does an amazing job with that. You also guys would probably familiar with, what's his cat name again? He's more popular on Instagram. Rodney, what's his last name? Man, how am I spacing out on Rodney? Y'all probably know who I'm talking about. Let me see if I see his Instagram, because I follow him on Instagram. Rodney East, there we go. Rodney East is another master of the drop 2. A lot of guys here use it on YouTube. You know, a lot of the gospel guys, you'll see them use it. Honestly, I don't use it a lot. I know what it is. There's some places that I use it, but it's not something I've practiced over the years heavily to be fluent with it. But it's a cool technique. Not necessarily a passing chord. You can use it as a passing chord, but remember, it's a voicing. Predominantly, it's a voicing technique, right? And so you can apply it to your passing chords or to regular chords. That's what it is. All right, another question from Levi. He says, can you someday break down the organ cover of Lift Every Voice and Sing by Willis Hickerson? Maybe. Depends on the level of complexity. Because to be honest, a lot of you guys don't know, some of these advanced transcriptions, they can take hours and days to transcribe. You know, so when you see guys like Sean Wilson, who's putting out these transcriptions, he's a master at the transcription, but it takes a lot of time. And, you know, he said that himself. And I know it because I transcribe some complex stuff myself. So depends on the complexity, because if it's something that's going to take hours and a lot of time, I don't know if I'm going to dive down there. I may take a snippet of it, but transcribing something that is, especially organ, if it's not a good recording, can be a little bit tricky. Another question, please describe how to play 2-2 hymn style. You're a good instructor, thanks. So 2-2 is kind of similar to 4-4, right? It's just 1-2, 1-2. 1, 2, 1, 2, opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It's kind of really where you put the downbeat, right? So the thing to know in when it comes to time signatures is that the downbeat, the first beat of the measure, is what we call the heavy beat, right? And so when you understand that, you can take different time signatures and make it feel different. Let's just take Amazing Grace. So if I'm doing in that 3 feel, it's 1, 2, 3, 1. So that downbeat gives you the 1, which helps you to identify that, oh, it's those 3 beats. Now, if I'm doing Amazing Grace in 4, you see, by just shifting where I put my strong beat, I change the song from 3-4 to 4-4. Now, if you want it to feel more like 2-2, or what they call cut time, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Sorry, 2, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So every 2 beats, you're putting the accents. Oftentimes, also, especially in hymns, when you see a song written in 2-2 opposed to 4-4, or what they call cut time, they're also generally saying it has a more up-tempo feel to it. But to be honest, man, there isn't really any distinction. It's just how you're counting it and how you're feeling it. I always think cut time is a weird thing because it's, you know, in a lot of cases, it just sounds like 4-4 to me, but that's really what it is to it. There isn't much to it. Caleb says, how can I pick up my playing level to advance? So how do I get from currently where you are to advance? And here's a hard truth that I want to tell y'all. Getting the biggest obstacle in a lot of people getting to advance. And the reason why I can say that is I've watched people over the years just not improving. And it's not that they don't have the skill to get to advance. It's not that they don't have the resource to get to advance. It's that they don't have the patience and the consistency. That's the biggest thing. Everybody who don't make it to advance, that's your biggest thing. You don't have the patience and you don't have the consistency. It requires a long haul. The road to advance, it's a consistency thing, man. Imagine running a 5K marathon. The guys who complete that are the guys who can steady the course. You gotta have that endurance and you gotta have that stamina. And you gotta do it when you don't wanna do it. That's it. Especially with resources like YouTube, where there's 1,001 different piano teachers putting out content. All you got to do is just practice. Practice something new every other day, every 2 days, every 3 days. Learn it, move on to something else, but just keep on learning. If you can have this appetite of just wanting to learn, but not just consume information, consume and implement. Consume and implement. You wake up one day and be like, oh, wow, I'm an advanced player. When did I get here? I can't tell you when I become an advanced player, but the day it clicked that I am an advanced player, it was a strange awakening, because it's almost like I can't remember how I got here. Like I just stumbled into the room. But then when I clearly think about it, I was like, nah, man, I didn't stumble. I've been working hard at this. But the thing is, what happens when you put in the work, and you put in the work over a long haul, after a while, you don't even think about the work anymore. You just keep going like a horse with unlimited stamina. That's really what's blocking a lot of you guys. The downside of the digital age and YouTube, everybody wants this quick fix and quick win. When I was coming up through the ranks, there ain't no YouTube tutorial. You either know something or you just didn't. There was no way to quickly get that answer. And I think that has bred a generation of folks to just think, if I'm not able to get it within a week, it ain't worth it. But getting to advance is going to require you to put in the work. So look, we're what? We're in June now. Look at it since January. Clearly think about, what have you done since January? How many songs have you learned? How many songs have you transcribed? Right? How many scales have you mastered? How many scales have you practiced? Like, if you legit take, sort of a survey of the last 5 months out of the year, and if you can't see the work, then that's 5 months wasted. And I know some of you might say, but I'm in school, but I got 6 kids, but I got 3 jobs. It don't matter. We all have 6 kids, we all have 3 jobs, we all got wives. Your situation is not unique. You just got to put in the work. Now, do you have to be on all the time? No, absolutely not. You take breaks when you need. Your mental and physical health is more important, right? You take breaks, but you come back. And you got to come up with a system of tracking what you're doing. It can't be a willy-nilly, you just sit at the piano and you're like, well, what am I going to practice today? No. It's got to be a systematic thing. You got to be keeping logs. All right, what am I know how to do that. Boom, cross that off. No. And you have to trust the process. People get too obsessed in wanting to see the end, right? People always ask me, why do I need to practice my scale? It doesn't matter. Just practice the scale, because Warren said to do it. I promise you, one day you're going to be like, oh, that's why I need to practice my scale. Oh, that's why I need to practice your training. Oh, that's why I need to practice transcription. Not everything is going to be revealed to you at the beginning. And as much as I try to do my best, I'm not going to be able to explain everything in a way that is going to make sense right now. You just got to trust me. You just got to trust the process that if I do this, I believe, I'll be able to see how it, pan out in the end. Right? You got to trust the process and stop questioning, but why I need to. Doesn't matter. Knowledge gain is never lost. So just put in the work. All right. Enough ranting for me. I just wanted to clear that up, because I see too many people fall and they spend 5 years, 10 years making very minimal progress because they think their situation is what's holding them back, or the fact that they don't have a $5,000 keyboard. Like, none of those things matter. Just put in the work, right? Treat it like an investment. Put in the work. Get tutorials, buy courses, invest in programs. If a program ain't working for you, change, find another program, but you put in the work. I spent 9 years in music school, in college, spent thousands of dollars, which is part of why I know all these things and part of why I play the way I do, because I'm formally trained. But then there are also a lot of people who were in music school with me at the time who just washed out, right? Because they didn't complete, or they just weren't serious enough, or they lost interest. But for whatever it is, they're not doing this anymore. Point I'm making is that I invested in my musical development. So if you want to be as good as I am, you can't just put in 1 hour a week. Nah, I've racked up over 10,000 hours, man. But also I've been doing this for over 20 years as well, right? So I've been in the game a long time. All right, let's take another question. I want to know more tritone substitution chord in gospel style. Yeah, man, just type tritone substitution piano with Warren. At this point, you're trying to go through it now. But I have a lot of videos already on that subject that's very detailed. So I'm confident once you go through at least one of those videos, you'll have a better understanding. All right, question from Benjamin. He says, how can I know the next chord when playing? Oh, definitely answered that question already. A question, I'm approaching intermediate level, as I can see, just need advice from you. Keep on working, man. Somebody once says, the things that you did as a beginner that got you to intermediate is not going to get you to advance, right? You're going to have to learn a new set of skills to take you from intermediate to advance. Now, if I were to list some of those skills, if you're at the intermediate level, and for me, intermediate means you can play in all 12 keys comfortably. You can at least play 12 songs, 24 songs comfortably. If you can't do that, you're not intermediate. But if you're comfortable at the intermediate level, and you can say, all right, I'm a solid intermediate player, I can play songs, I can learn songs, the thing that's going to take you from intermediate to advance is you got to work on speed. The way you work on speed, the metronome needs to become your friend. Metronome, drum pattern, but you got to start learning how to play faster, your scales, your arpeggios, right? So if you can play your scales here, now the goal is to eventually get it here. But you don't just get it like that overnight. So you gradually increase. You say, all right, this week I could play my scales at about 100 beats per minute. The goal is to get it to 110 in the next 2-3 weeks. Then after that, 120. So you gradually increase the speed until you get it sounding like the guys in the recording. So speed is one thing you start to try to work on. The second thing is transcription. And I think not a lot of people talk about this, right? People always talk about how do I learn more chords and licks and runs. You learn those things through transcription. What is transcription? The ability to listen to a song, sit at your keyboard, and figure out everything that's going on in the song. Every song tutorial I post, every song tutorial I do, how you think I learned it? I listen to the original, I transcribe it, and then I teach you guys how to play it. And so that's why I said I've transcribed hundreds of songs, probably over 1,000, definitely over 1,000 in my lifetime. But on average, I probably transcribe, 60 songs a year. On average. Just transcribe song. If I like a song, I just transcribe it. You'll never catch me searching online for a chord chart. I prefer to just, learn it myself. Because through that trial and error, that's how your ears develop, that's how your vocabulary develop, that's how your understanding of music and learning develop. You gotta be transcribing. Now, if you're new to transcription, start simple. Start with the easiest songs and gradually work your way up. But if you say you're an intermediate and you're not transcribing, you're not going to get to advance. You got to start transcribing. It needs to become a regular thing. Because transcription is also ear training, right? At the intermediate level, you also need to be doubling up the amount of songs you're learning. So if you've been learning like 1 to 2 songs a month, that's way too low. You need like 6 songs a month minimum at the intermediate level. You got to be, and when I'm saying learn everything, learn it, then move on. Don't worry about trying to, oh, I forget it 3 months later. It doesn't matter. Your goal is to just try to just plow through, learn. Because through that learning process, your vocabulary starts to grow. And that's what moves you to advance. The bigger your vocabulary gets, the more advanced you'll start to play and get. So that's why when I'm playing, I can like quickly just figure out what chord goes where. And it's just a vocabulary. I have 1,000 chords in my brain rattling around at any given second, and so, you know, I said I can often hear what chord needs to go when before I play it. That comes through experience. So that's why you got to learn a lot of songs and develop that experience. So those are some things I'd recommend you do that will get you from beginner to advanced. I mean, from intermediate to advanced. Axe say, what are some common passing chords that you use when playing the primary chords? So common passing chords, the most used is going to be secondary dominance, 2-5-1 passing, diminished passing, dominant chromatic passing. Tritone sub, but yeah, I would throw a tritone in there as well. Yeah. 2-5-1, secondary dominant, diminished chromatic, a tritone sub. That's at 4. And just to demonstrate each of them to you. So just take Amazing Grace, everybody knows that. Passing. Chromatic dominant. Diminish. Like me. Was lost. 2-5 passing. Secondary dominant mixed with diminished chromatic, diminished passing. Was blind, but now secondary dominant I see. So you'll find in most songs, especially in the gospel context, a lot of those passing chords are going to be able to work regardless of the song. So if you are wanting to get into passing chord, start with those, right? Question from Delano says, based on a beginner piano study book, the Hannon exercise 116, what kind of speed that 10 fingers and 2 hands develop evenly? I don't, to be honest, I don't know much about Hannon. It's something I used to do in the early days, probably like 17 years ago when I started. I haven't done anything like that then, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what speed. Generally with Hannon though, it's kind of like however fast you want to get it. The reason why I'm not a big fan of Hannon, I'm not a big fan of any exercise that isn't directly transferable. Meaning, if you can't do it in a song, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Most of Hannon exercises isn't transferable. It's not something you could just add in a song. It's a good exercise for just developing finger strength, dexterity. But for me, I feel you can develop the dexterity and the strength and the independence by just practicing things that will actually get you playing. Things that you can actually use in a song. Scales, arpeggios, block chords, broken chords. Right? So that's my thing with Hannon and exercises. But generally, it's, you know, speed is, as long as you're developing the fingers to move fast, then however fast you want to get it, that's it. I mean, you look at a guy like Corey Henry and Jesus Molina, these guys can like, I mean, even Johan Kim, these guys can like fly on the keyboard. Their speed's insane, right? So it just shows you that, you know, you can, there's levels to speed. I'm not nowhere near those guys in speed, but I can run my scales and stuff pretty fast. So after a while, speed just becomes a thing. It's kind of like gymnastics. Like, okay, how much further do you want to go with this, right? Okay, let's take some more questions. Caleb says, how can I upgrade the level at which my team play in a case where those who I play with are novice in music and Sunday service are always a disaster? I feel you, my brother. The sad truth is you can only focus on yourself. Unless someone have the desire to grow and learn and improve, there's nothing you can do. I've played in churches before and in bands where I am way ahead skill-wise compared to the other people in the band. And I just had to live with that. One, because those guys were older and have zero desire in getting any better. They were comfortable with where they are. And so I did my best to make it work. And by make it work, I mean I play at their level so we all sound good. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of a band is to sound good. It's not to showcase any individual member. If you want to showcase yourself, go play solo piano, right? The goal of the band is to sound good. And so I do whatever I need to do so the band sounds good. So if that means simplifying my chords, whatever I need to do, I do that. And I'm fine with that. Now, do I prefer to play with guys at my caliber? Absolutely, because then I can do more and we can, you know, we can dominate. Now, so Caleb, it depends on, first of all, I would try to solve the disaster. The fact that you use the word disaster is interesting. If people are showing up, just don't even know the song, then we have a problem. That's just negligence right there. That person doesn't care. And so we have a, you know, do we fire them from the band? You know, we got to figure out what to do there. Now, if this person is putting in the work, but they just need some help, like probably they need the chord charts, right? I've played in bands before where these guys weren't very good at transcribing. So instead of pressuring them to transcribe the song, I just do it and then send them the chord charts. Because then they don't have to spend 3 times the length of time learning the song when I could have just easily transcribed it and sent it to them. So, you know, first of all, you are trying to minimize the disaster. Make sure people at least just know the basic songs, the basic chords, and can function. But like I said, if these individual members aren't taking the initiative, because I mean, we're not talking about kids. If we're talking about grown folk, come on, I shouldn't have to make you want to learn. It's either you want to learn or you don't, right? So if it's people who aren't interested in bettering themselves, unfortunately, there's not much you can do. And if they are interested and you see there are ways you can help them to be less disastrous, then do so. But without knowing your exact situation and the exact situation of each member, I can't tell you exactly what to do, right? Another question, do you do melodic dictation based on numbers or intervals? I often transcribe melodies by ear and then analyze them by intervals. I usually attribute the number system to chords. For melody, I usually use solfege, primarily because that's how I was taught. So if I'm thinking about a melody, like what are the exact notes, I immediately switch to solfege mode, like Amazing Grace. So, do, mi, re, do, la, so. So, do, mi, re, so. It's easy for me to think of a melodic line in solfege, again, because that's the way I was taught. So whichever way you were introduced to first, whichever way is easier, right? You know, if it's easy for you to sing melodies with numbers, as long as you're understanding. Note that it's important to note that the method you use isn't that much important. Is it allowing you to get to the goal? The goal is to learn a melody, to be able to quickly determine what the notes are, and so whatever method gets you there, that's the one I would use, right? So I wouldn't get too tied up in the method. It's the solution. Is the method getting me to my solution? If it is, keep on doing it. All right, so that's how I deal with melodic lines. Welcome, folks. If you're just joining, this is the live Q&A. Occasionally I go live on YouTube where I just answer questions and hang out with y'all. So that's what we are doing here today. If you have a question, pop it in the chat. I'll try my best to get through all the questions. Be sure to make your questions as concise and clear as possible so I can provide the answer for you without having to guess. Xavier says, I watch your lessons on the upper structure. Can you please tell me how the chords and write extensions once I know how to play chord extensions for all the chords? I'm not quite sure which of the questions you're asking here. I think I may answer this one. Can you please tell me how to choose the right extensions once I know the chords? So extensions are usually predictable, right? Like, for example, if I'm playing a dominant 7 chord, my options for extensions are 9th, flat 9, sharp 9, sharp 11, 13th. Or I can play all of those. 13 sharp 11, 13 sharp 9, 13 flat 9. Those are really the options you have on a dominant 7 chords. Those are the extensions you can add. Generally, the extension is going to be based on what's going on in the melody. Ideally, when you're using a dominant 7 chord, it's better to use extensions on the passing or at a part where the singer isn't singing, right? It's also important to note that if you're new to extensions, it's best to work with diatonic extensions first before getting into altered extensions. What I mean by diatonic extension is that the extended note belongs to the chord. So if I play a G13th in the key of C, all the notes in this chord belongs to the key of the key of C. This is what I called a diatonic extension. There's no alteration. Once I start adding black keys, then it becomes altered extensions. Those chords, when you start altering, it creates more dissonance, which means you got to kind of know what you're doing so those dissonances resolve nicely, right? So it's better just to start work with diatonic extensions first. Now, one of the best ways to start learning how to use extensions is to just copy them from others. So you're learning one of my song tutorial, you see me use a chord, you use the same chord, but take note of what I play, how I play it, and in the context I play it. So you learn when you're doing it in other songs, you kind of have an idea when. But diatonic extensions, it's just one of those things, it's better to learn it. It's kind of like language. The best way to teach a 2-3-year-old how to speak is to just talk to them. And then they'll just start copying you. But they're not just copying you, they're listening for how you use certain words, when you use certain words, the context, the inflection of how you use certain words. Yeah, a 2-3-year-old, they're smart enough. That's how they learn how to speak. That's how we all learned how to speak. And then once they start to develop their own vocabulary, then they'll be able to start use words in their own voice. So the best way to learn how to use these advanced chords is to just copy them from others. The same way you see others use them, you just use them the same way. Because that's how you're going to know when it works and how it works, right? It's not something you can just conjure on your own without some form of experience or reference to see how it was used. That's the way I learned how to use these chords as well. I learned them over the years through studying recording, through transcribing. Remember that word we talk about? Got to be transcribing. That's how you really use them, right? Lyndon says, what are your favorite passing chords? To be honest, all of them. I use a lot of different passing chords. They're, you know, it's all about context. So my favorite passing chord is going to be whatever worked at that time. There isn't any favorite because not all passing chords works everywhere. Not all passing chord works in every song. So, you know, it's one of those things. Alan Marvell, yeah, not a crazy cat with just, you know, extensions for days and drop twos and all of that. Question, how to modulate from C to D. The best way to modulate through any key is to use what I call the 5 of the new key. So if you're going from C to D, key of D, what is the 5 in the key of D? It's A. So you want to use the 5 of the new key to modulate to the new key. Here is a contextual approach. And we're just going to beat out Amazing Grace today. Everything is going to be Amazing Grace today, right? Right? Saving grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. But now I see. Here we go. Was grace that thought. See, I'm now in the key of D. At the end of that phrase, but now I see. Then I went to my A sus resolve, and then that takes me right to D. And this is a technique you can use on any song. Doesn't matter if you modulate a half step, a whole step, a third, 5 of the new key, go to the new key. It's the easiest way and the cleanest way to modulate. Is it the only way? No, but it's one of the most common ways, especially when it's a spontaneous modulation, you know, to get the singer's tune to the new key. That's the way to go. Interesting question. Vicky says, why can't instrumentalists earn like artists? And I believe she's talking about financial, you know, earnings. It's all about supply and demand. What does the masses want more? It's not instrumental music. It's vocal music, right? People like us who are instrumentalists will prefer, like I'll pay top dollars to go to a concert to watch instrumentalists, no singing, all night, opposed to a singer. If I had to choose, instrumentalist all day. Because I'm an instrumentalist, so there's a bias there. But the rest of the world, they don't care about that stuff. They want to hear simple pop songs, catchy tunes, easily memorizable lyrics and melodies. That's it. It's the same reason why jazz musicians don't make nowhere near pop musicians. In fact, most jazz musicians are broke, right? It's that same reason. Nobody wants the majority of the society isn't interested in instrumental and those complex chords and sitting there watching somebody improvise with licks and runs for 20 minutes over a song. It's guys like me who like to geek out over that stuff. We're the ones that's interested in that music. And so you realize that the more complex the music, the more harmonically dense the music, the smaller the audience for that music, right? I mean, even just take gospel music. Gospel music, contemporary Christian music, which one's more popular? By far, contemporary Christian. I mean, you pull up any Elevation Worship, Hillsong, Maverick City, all their videos got like 30 million views. You pull up a Kirk Franklin, a Fred Hammond, a John P. Key, yeah, they may do a 2-3 million here, but that's about it. It's just that, supply and demand. Whatever the greater society desires more, it's going to be sold more, And if it's sold more, the people who produce those type of music is going to get paid more. So that's the bare bones of it. You know, we call that capitalism, right? Supply and demand. If you're able to serve the masses, you're going to be able to make more money. If your product only serves a subset of people, it's the same thing. Take my channel, for example. Y'all know that all I do on this channel is gospel music. That's a personal preference and conviction. Can I play other genre of music? Absolutely. Very well. Every genre. From gospel to funk to blues to calypso to salsa to reggae. I can and have played it all. I've toured in bands to play a lot of those music. From a personal conviction, I've decided I only want to teach gospel piano. My channel is sitting at about, 250 subscribers, 250,000 subscribers. But then if you look at the other channels that dabbles in pop music and covers a wider variety of music, they got lot more subscribers than me. Some of them have over 1 million. It's because more people are interested in that kind of music. Not everybody's interested in gospel music. In fact, if you don't go to church, there's a strong chance you're not interested in gospel music, right? But I'm fine with that. I understand the market, you know. I prefer to do something that I feel comfortable getting up in the morning and doing, opposed to just doing it for the love of it, right? So there's no amount of money a pop artist can pay me to like pack this up and go on the street and tour full time. No. The money would be good, but I don't think I would be happy. And at this stage of my life, at the age of 40, my happiness is more important, right? So, you know, it's a weird situation. And not everybody's able to do that, which is fine. I think I'm blessed in a way to be able to do what I love. Some people just got to grind it out and do what they don't like until they're able to do what they love. But at the end of the day, that's how our system is designed to work. If you can sell more of your product, you're going to make more at the end of the day. Instrumentalists don't sell a lot of stuff or able to produce a lot of stuff. And in most cases, you're going to find yourself playing for an artist. So you're just a hired gun. Imagine working for a company. You're not going to make as much as the CEO because you're just a hired person. Same thing in a band. If it's a singer that runs the band, they're the CEO, right? They're going to make the bulk of the money. The band members, doesn't matter how good they are, just a hired gun, they're not going to be able to make as much. Great question, though. Hamilton says, how do you use diminish augmented? And what passing chord used when going to chord 5? And which better prepared when going to chord 4? First of all, there isn't a chord known as a diminish augmented. That's like saying the major or minor chord. It's either major or minor. It's either diminish or augmented. It can't be both, right? It's just two different qualities of chord that is built with different interval structure. That's a diminished chord. A diminished chord is built with minor third and minor third. When you stack two minor thirds on top of each other, you get a diminished chord. An augmented chord is built with a major third and a major third. When you stack two major thirds on top of each other, you get an augmented chord. So that's why you can't have a diminished augmented, because it's two fundamentally different chord, right? Now, can you blend them together? You can. Gives you a weird chord, but you know, we don't really think of them as diminished augmented. When we combine them, then it creates a whole new different chord. Your second questions were the best passing chords to go to the 5 and to the 4, secondary dominants. Always. Those are the best, easiest, and cleanest passing chords to get to the 4. So if I'm on the 1, before I go to the 4, I turn my 1 into a secondary dominant. It takes me to 4. If I'm on the 1 going to the 5, before I get to the 5, I play a D7, which is a secondary dominant, which takes me to the 5. If you want to learn more about secondary dominant, check out my videos on it. I have quite a few videos on it. Just type in secondary dominants, piano with Warren, and you'll see all my videos talking about it in more detail. All right, we're doing good. We're doing good, folks. All right. Caleb says, how can I get my choir to understand pitch better? It's a tough one, brother. You can teach them. And when I used to do choir work, we would have workshops where we just, on like a Saturday evening, we come in and I'm teaching them music theory. Like, you know, doing pitch work with them, you know, getting them to understand pitch, and, you know, you got to train it like vocal lessons almost. Now, if you don't sing, it might be a little hard for you. I sing. I've been singing longer than I've been playing piano, so I was able to coach them. Now, with that said, not everybody's good with pitch. And pitch is a very hard thing to fix, especially if they're kind of tone deaf, where they just can't sing on key. That's a tough one, brother. And I've come across all those different types of folks. But that's where I would start, is to just, you got to have workshops outside of just regular church service, and, you know, like a once a month thing on a Saturday or whatever, when everybody's available. Y'all plan for it, and you come and you work on getting them to sing correctly, sing from the diaphragm, work on their breathing, work on their vowel pronunciation, because that's one of the big thing of singing. People don't understand that you sing on your vowels, not your consonant. So when I go, what's my vowel there? A. So it's the A that we're singing on, right? And so you work on how to tune your vowels. In grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch. So there's a lot that goes into singing. I was a vocal minor in college, so I do know a lot about vocal and vocal training. It's not something I'm interested in teaching, which is why I've never done anything like that on the channel. But if you want your choir to get better, part of that would require you, if you don't know anything about singing, to learn about singing and all that, so you can teach it to them. Right? Great question, though. Daniel says, I've got this chord E in the bass, F, B flat, and D between a C and an F. What is the name of the chord? So you have E in the bass, F, B flat, D. I don't know. The reason being is because right off the bat we have a dissonance right here. Right? So it doesn't matter how I invert this chord, it doesn't really have a name. Now if it was an F sharp, I would just say it's a rootless voicing sharp 11 chord. Without the root. But with the F, the mere fact that you have the D, E and the F in the same place, I don't know what chord that is, right? If it was if we could probably think of it like, you know, if we did D in the bass, a D minor 9, that's sort of one of the only contexts where E and F would work good, or a major 7. But again, you throw a B flat in there, takes it out of the key of C. Don't know what chord that is. Yeah. Question from, well, I'm not able to pronounce that name. Is it possible to play complex chords without knowing the name of them, just purely by hearing? Absolutely. Because remember, chords is just a sound. I've come across composers, people who write their own songs, or able to come up with some amazing chords and progressions. I have no idea what the chords are. And so they would call me up to help them create a chord chart, because they don't know how to name the chord. They don't have the theoretical background to name the chords, but they can hear it. Music is an oral art. Theory came after. So guys were creating music without knowing anything about theory. And then somebody came and do the analysis and be like, okay, this is what these chords name. You know what I mean? So yes, you don't need to know the chord to play it. I would recommend you learn a name, because if you can name it, then it's easier to remember. So you're not just guessing, right? Now, part of the reason I can always play that chord is because I know it's an altered dominant, C7 sharp 5 sharp 9. And because I can name it, it also makes it easier to hear it in songs. Ooh, that's that altered dominant right there. So yeah, while it's possible to learn chords without knowing the name, I would recommend to try to learn the name of, once you discover a new chord, try to learn the name of it. It will help you make sense of things easier. Question from Paul. Can you please do cover on a video, Maboji, Power in the Name of Jesus? It's giving you problems. It depends. First of all, I don't recognize the title. Is that like a African gospel tune? You know, you can pop it in one of them videos that I have, comment into one of those videos, and I'll check it out to see what it's about. Question from God Will. Can you play and show an example of how to play when the church is singing, and how to play multiple arpeggios and jazz scales? My brother, this question's too large. It's too broad of a context. Why? Because the way I play, or the way you should play, is going to change based on the style of music that's being done, and also the instrumentation. Is it just you alone, or is it you and the band? Can't really replicate any of those. Now, it's also based on the style of music, because are we talking about Southern gospel where we're walking bass? As a mere fact that you mentioned jazz scales and all of that, those things tend to work a little bit better on gospel, traditional gospel, or modern gospel that's already lend itself to that sort of complexity. You can't be running jazz scales on CCM. Don't matter which CCM it is, it's not going to work. Right? Arpeggios and those things, it's all contextual. And this is why I always say one of the best way to learn how improvisation works in songs and all of that stuff is to just see what others are doing. Recently, I've been posting clips of my church services of me playing. I call it church flows. That would be a great example if you want to see me in action. Check out that. I have a playlist, probably 70 different clips at this point. They're shorts. You see me play different type of song in the context of a band. It's a 6-piece band. And you see how I use arpeggios and runs and all of that stuff. That's the best way to learn. It's contextual. You can hear the type of song being done, and you see the type of things I do in those songs. You're learning in a context, because not everything is going to apply to every song. And how are you going to know what songs these things apply for? You got to see it in context. So those are the best way to learn a lot of these things, right? We can't take musical concept as everything is just blanket and applies to every song. Everything is contextual. Just like how you wouldn't, I don't know, put curry spice on ice cream. What? That would be insane. Context. You wouldn't eat, I don't know, you wouldn't add barbecue sauce on jerk chicken, curry chicken. You wouldn't add barbecue sauce on curry chicken. Those two spices just don't mix together. You know, I'm trying to use food as an analogy because everybody would be able to understand that. But the idea is, in music, there's context. And if you ignore context and just think everything applies to every song, that's where we run into problems. All right? John says, a creative way to play 5-1-4 progression. There is no creative way to play that song without context. Because creativity needs a context. Without context, it's hard to say if something sounds good or not. Because a 5-1-4 progression, take the key of C, 5-1-4. That could be interesting. I could say, what if I do them in drop twos? 5-1-4. right? Or 4. So 5, 1, 4. Or 5, 5, 5, 1, 4. So, I mean, without it in the context of a song, we can't tell what is interesting. In the context of a song, then we can try different voicing technique and see which one sounds cooler. So you need something, a constant, that we're playing against. And then we're making changes against that constant and see which one flows better. But outside of that, an arbitrary progression isn't going to sound any different because we don't have any context of how it's being played, timing-wise, or how it's being played against a melody. We need another variable before we can make something sound interesting. Question, how should I plan out my learning journey when I get my MIDI keyboard? I'm trying to play like Tritone Van. I don't know who that is, so I can't tell you what to do to sound like them. But one thing I do know is regardless of whatever style or genre of music you want to learn, if you want to be good at it, the process is going to be the same. You start with learning the fundamentals of music. Scales, arpeggios, block chords, broken chords, chord progressions, being able to play chord progressions in every key. Then start working on your ear training, theory, understanding how music is put together with progression. So regardless of whatever style of music you learn, the progress in the process is going to be the same. It's just the type of music that you're implementing that knowledge on. That's the only thing that changes. But everything else pretty much stays the same. All right. Person says, song composers should make more the most money. I don't know. It depends. Now, what I think doesn't matter because I'm not the one setting the prices. But what I do know is supply and demand, right? Who are the people seeing? Like, when you see Beyonce on stage, we don't know who writes her song. Well, unless you research it. I don't know any of Beyonce's composers. You think she's the one sitting there writing out all those parts and licks and lines and runs and all that stuff? Nah. She got a team of composers and musicians that she's working with. Are they making anywhere near what Beyonce is making? No. Because she's the face. She is the brand. Without Beyonce, there is no Beyonce. The composer can't step up and become her. No. People are familiar with her, the brand. And it's the same thing in every genre of music. Kirk Franklin doesn't write all of his songs. In fact, no major artist writes all their songs. Sometimes they don't write most of them. They buy them or people sell them songs. They have a team of writers. But nobody cares about the writers. People care about the person who performs it, right? It's kind of like, take movies, you know, all these characters that plays these movies, they make bank. Are they making as much as the writers? More than the writers, because nobody cares about the writers. People care about the characters. And you can't just switch out those characters, or people aren't going to buy the product. That's just how it works. So we could say, well, they're the one behind the scenes doing all the heavy lifting and doing all the creative work. Yeah, but people aren't paying for the writers. They're paying for who is delivering the product. Because if the writers, everything could stay the same. The script, the melody, the chord progression, but we just put a different person in the role. And you see the price drops because people pay for a certain product. And the people who are the face of the band, the face of the industry, the face of the movie, they are the product, in a way. People are paying to see them. That's why people get so upset when they change out characters out of movies. Some people just stop watching or they don't purchase anymore. Same thing. Imagine if some different dude just jumped on Piano Lesson with Warren. How many of y'all would still stick around? I'm guessing a lot of you guys are here because you've kind of grown used to my personality and my teaching style, and yeah, you like Warren. But if I just sell this channel to some guy you've never seen, maybe it just wouldn't be the same. Even if this guy is equally as skilled, why? Because you've gotten used to me. I am the product in a way. And so you show up to see Warren. It's the same thing. There are certain creators that I follow. If they switch out those creators, I'm gone because it's just not the same. You've developed, an attachment to this person. So that's just how music work, the industry of any sort of public figure product work. Great question. We're going to spend another, say, probably about 7 minutes. I'm going to jump off at 4:30 my time. So I can take a few more questions. Question, when you're learning a new song, can you hear the scale degree of the melody almost instantly? Yeah. Scale degrees is not hard once you learn it. It doesn't change, regardless of key. So that's a more what I refer to as the fundamental skills. When I'm hearing a song for the first time, by the end of the song, depends on the complexity, I have already learned 60 to 70% of the song without touching a keyboard. Hearing it for the first time, by the end of the song, I've already absorbed 50 to 60% of everything that's going on. Because I can hear it. And the things that I can hear, but I can't tell quite what it is, within a few minutes at the piano, I'll figure it out. Right? So that's how when you transcribe enough songs, after a while, you just start hearing the pattern, you start hearing the movements, you hear a melodic line and you know exactly what was done. You know, it comes from experience. Great question. Question, as a keyboard player who has a problem with worship team, what can I do to make them better? I believe I talked about that question already when Delano asked it. Very little you can do, to be honest, if the person is not willing to learn. Question from James, how to know chords of a song and not just follow? You got to learn the chords of a song. If you don't know the chords of a song, there isn't any way to know without either guessing, which means you don't know, or you learn the chords in advance. That's it. So oftentimes one of the questions people ask me is, how do you accompany a singer with a song you've never played before? Well, you can't. You can guess the chords, and that requires skill. You don't know if you're playing the chords correctly. You're just playing chords that you think match what they're singing. That's it. I try to avoid those situations. I want to know the song, right? Or at least hear it a couple times so I have an idea of what the chord is. But there is no magic trick where you can just figure chords out if you have not played the song before, right? Question from Joshua. Warren, you're doing a good, you're doing good. You're doing what God puts in your heart. Oh, thank you, brother. We love gospel music skills. Great. That's awesome. Thank you. Oh, so Barla says Zato Van is a gospel artist. He makes trap music. I don't know what trap music is. I think I've heard it before, but don't know exactly what it is. See, I'm more old school, right? It's just, if it ain't mainstream stuff that you hear in church, I probably don't know it because I only listen to that stuff, right? So I'm not really out in the weeds. It's all cool though, but I do know, regardless of whatever style or genres you're interested in, the process doesn't change. It's still going to require you to learn the same things that I preach here every day. It does make you into a better player. So whether you want to produce rap music, gospel, funk, neo soul, whatever you want to do, learning the fundamentals, it's just going to make you a better player in all of that stuff as well. Brother says, how can I get access to your tutorials? Well, outside of the stuff that I offer on YouTube, I would strongly recommend you just go to pianolesson pianolesswithwarren.com. That's my membership program right here, pianolesswithwarren.com. I offer a lot over there. Dozens and dozens of courses that you won't find on YouTube, you'll find there. But outside of the courses, what you actually get when you join Piano Lessons with Warren is the structure. I offer a structured program. That structure doesn't exist on YouTube. So I tell you where to start, what to practice, when to move on to a next topic. It's like a school. You're learning things systematically, right? And we offer a lot of other programs, transcription classes, so you learn how to transcribe, ear training activities. There's a whole host of things that I offer over there. It's what I do full time. That's what I do full time, is run that website. And I've taught and teaching hundreds and thousands of people every day from all over the world. I literally have people from all over the world. Like, I see sometimes people join from countries. I'm like, ooh, I gotta look where that is on a map because I don't recognize the name. You know what I mean? But it's a great place, and we offer a 7-day free trial because I want everybody to get a taste before they commit, because it might not be for them, but I'm confident if you like the stuff on YouTube that I produce, then you will also appreciate the membership, because it's going to go a lot deeper in that direction and offer a lot more there as well. All right. What is the best approach to playing on a key without necessarily using the transpose? You just got to learn the key. Imagine your keyboard doesn't have a transpose button, and keep learning. That's the best way. Just pretend it doesn't exist. I had to play this song a few weeks ago in church. It was fairly complex, a lot of chords, it's like those show tune ballads. It's just extensions everywhere. Beautiful song though. But I didn't get a lot of time to learn it, so I just transcribed the chords. I could play it. But then I showed up Sunday morning, like 15 minutes before church. The singer's like, can you change the key? I have a transpose button on my keyboard, so I could have transposed. But the principal won't let me do it. I'm not using the transpose. So when I tell y'all I don't transpose, it's not me trying to like take the high road. It's a principle of mine. If I can't play it, I'm not transposing it. So I tell the singer, listen, man, we're gonna have to do this song next week. I can't just change the key on a whim because I have it written out in a particular key and we don't got time for me to learn a new key. So we change the song. That's just how I roll. Because I'm not going to tell y'all not to use a transpose, but I'm behind the scene using a transpose. Nope. And that forces me to learn all 12 keys over the years. And it's the same thing. Same standard I set for myself, it's the same standard I'm setting for you. Force yourself to never have to rely on the transpose button. It'll make you a better musician in the end. I guarantee that. How to use diminished chords. Check out my multiple videos right here on YouTube on diminished chords. Type diminished chords, piano lesson with Warren, and you'll see a lot of great videos that covers that. Daniel, could I send you a video showing you this chord played between the C? Yeah, just post a video on one of my comments and I'll see it and I'll check it out and let you know what I think it is. But without some form of a context, I can't tell you what's going on, unfortunately. All right, last question. I have started at 28, wish me luck. 28's a good age. I started at 19, learning piano. Here I am today at 40, still going strong. In my program over at Piano Lesson with Warren, my oldest student is 84. Let that sink in. 84, who can not only understand to turn on the computer, join a Zoom session, sign up for a piano program, watch video lessons, send me emails with questions, download the PDF at 84. So, If a person at the age of 84 can have the mindset of still learning, at 28, you're just a spring chicken. You're just a cub. Imagine where you're going to be by the time you're 50, still young. You know, and so it's important to not get discouraged, to feel like time's running out. Right? I remember starting at 18 thinking it was too late. Looking back now, I'm like, I was such a silly guy. At 18, I was still a kid. But because I knew so many other people who started at 10 and 11, I was like, 18, man, I'm late to the game. Then I see people who would be signing up for piano classes at 60, 70, 80 years old. I was like, whew. But they don't care. And so you realize your mindset can hold you back, right? Your mindset, if you think it's too late, then it's too late. If you think you got too many things going on, then you got too many things going on. If you think you don't have the time, then you don't have the time. If you think you don't have the money, then you don't have the money. That one's a little tricky because sometimes you really don't have the money, but sometimes when you think about it, you do have the money. You know? At least in my case, sometimes I'm like, I don't have the money for this. But then I was just like, man, I just dropped this money on this new shoes. Did I really need a new shoes? No, I didn't. But I convinced myself I had the money for the shoes. But when I actually need some other things that I'm not too interested in, I'm like, I don't have the money. And so sometimes we really got to think deep about what we tell ourselves. Because if you repeat certain things to yourself too many times, the brain starts to believe it. So positive affirmation. Talk positive about your goals. I can. Like when I'm telling you, I grew up in the countries of Jamaica. I never thought I'd be able to make it this far in music. Why? Because I didn't see anybody do it. Nobody I knew got nowhere near where I am in music. So because I didn't see it, I didn't think it was possible. But luckily, I had family members and parents that pushed me, encouraged me. When I went to college for music, I had teachers who believed in me and encouraged me and helped me. Because Lord knows, if it was just my own voice, I would have packed up and went back home because I told myself it was too hard, I was too late, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, you know? It's easier to focus on the negatives and the reasons why you shouldn't, rather than focus on the reasons why you should, or the reasons why you could. So I just want to leave you guys with that today. Learning music requires patience. It requires consistency. This can't be something you dip in and out of. It's who you are now. You're a musician, you're a keyboard player. You just keep going. Not everything is going to make sense to you today or tomorrow, but I guarantee you, if you stick with it, one day you're going to wake up, you go, uh-huh. Do you know how many times I see people comment on my YouTube videos? They're like, man, I remember when this video just came out 5 years ago. Nothing in it made sense to me. And those people come back 5 years later and they're like, now I understood everything in the video. They stuck with it. They stuck with it. I stuck with it. And so if you do the same thing, you'll blow past your own expectation. But you gotta get out of the negative mindset. You gotta stop telling yourself you don't have the money, you don't have the time. Just stay consistent. Always have an open mind. Always be willing to learn. Exercise some discipline. You can't just be jumping all over the place trying to find this quick fix, quick win, silver bullet. You gotta do the discipline, have some discipline to do the things that feels boring. The boring stuff is also important. Eventually it all coalesces, it makes sense, things starts to gel, and you go, oh, now I understand. You gotta allow yourself that time. Regardless of your age, doesn't matter. We have enough resource now that everybody can make it to advance. Stop thinking about, man, is it gonna take me 6 months, 6 years? Don't matter. You're gonna be around anyways, right? Might as well just keep going. So whether it takes you 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, doesn't matter. You're still living, you're still breathing, you're gonna be around. So might as well just use the time doing the thing that you love or the things you wanna learn anyways. Because you're gonna wake up 10 years later and you're gonna be like, man, I wish wish I listened to Warren when he said doing it. Just keep on going and you'll be fine. I have faith and confidence in all y'all that you can make your wildest dreams and expectations, because I'm living my wildest dreams and expectations. I didn't think I could do it, if I'm being honest, but I just kept going. Why? Because I had nothing else. It was music or nothing. That's how I looked at it. It was this or nothing else, and luckily it paid off. But I don't even want to use the word luckily. It paid off because I made it paid off, with the help of the Lord, of course. But I put in the work. I didn't leave it up to chance. I put in that work. Right? So if y'all serious, put in that work. Start keeping a journal. What are you working on every day? Some days you might not be able to do something, but you got to be doing something every day. And keep putting in that work. Eventually it adds up. And then the learning compounds. 2 plus 2 equals 4. 4 plus 4 equals 8. 8 plus 8, 16. Right? 32. 70, 64. It compounds. So at first it might seem slow, but then after a while, the learning starts to compound. You start to learn faster and faster and faster. Right? It might take you a week to learn a new song now. You keep going, after a while, it takes you 3 days. Then 2 days. Then after a while, you realize it just takes you an hour to learn a song. Right? But you just got to keep going and allow yourself to experience that. All right? We're going to stop here for today, but I want to thank you guys for jumping on. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with me. Y'all brought some really good questions. Really enjoyed it, and I trust that my answers that I provided for you were adequate. But the channel has a lot of resource. I have over 1,000 videos here, and they're all free. Take advantage of them. Take notes, come back, rewatch a video, but utilize those resources. And for those of you who are ready to take the next leap into something more serious, check out Piano Lesson with Warren. You'll love it. You get to connect with me and interact with me a lot more frequent, because we do a lot of live sessions over there. So I look forward to see you guys there. All right? So until then, have a blessed evening, and we'll talk soon. Take care.